Okay, Pahrump, welcome back to the semi-abbreviated Monday night show of the Independent Doctors of Pahrump. I'm Dr. Michael Reiner, and I have Vern on the show tonight because I became saddened when I understood that one of the local pharmacies, Pahrump Valley Pharmacy, which was an independent pharmacy, closed its doors recently and either sold out to Walgreens or they bought them out or one of those things. And it brings back to mind what happened about a year ago when Family Pharmacy went out of business. And I know there were a lot of rumors and misconceptions about what happened to Family Pharmacy. But what I understand was that a while back ago, there has been pressure placed on pharmacies through major distributors, and the pressure that they've been placing on them, which I believe comes from the DEA, is that they've limited those pharmacies. They monitor pharmacies for the amount of controlled substances they sell to patients, so that if you are a patient and they look at your ratio, and that ratio is supposed to be 3 to 1.
What is give me a
that means what if you have a prescription for, let's say, Percocet, that you also have to be filling 2 other prescriptions that are non-controlled substances to keep it in this 30% ratio. So if you're just going to the pharmacy to get Percocet and nothing else, that could be a problem. And so it's a 3 to 1 ratio. And apparently, what I understand was that the supplier cut Family Pharmacy off because their ratios were higher. Okay, they were doing a lot of controlled substance business. So based on that, their supplier cut them off. They were forced to open up a new pharmacy in Vegas where they weren't subject to their supplier cutting them off. And that means they dumped all of their prescriptions onto Walgreens. So that was, and what people need to understand, that this is honest people. Yes, I know there are pill mills, and I know there's prescription drug abuse. Okay, it's rampant throughout the country. But to take a small town like this, where you have a lot of debilitated patients that have arthritis and chronic pain, and they have a lot of other prescriptions, and then you limit them and you put pressure on them. Okay, from the DEA is not passing a law. They're just putting pressure to control it. They're not investing the manpower to investigate doctors or to investigate anybody else. They're not doing that. It's like the banks asking the tellers to watch for money laundering. So it's like, I don't remember getting a check from the DEA that all of a sudden I'm part of their law enforcement, and the pharmacies are doing the same thing. And it all started with this pill mill bust in Florida. Walgreens Pharmacy was part of this issue where they actually were fined, according to the State Board of Pharmacy I spoke with, $80 million. $80 million. And what Walgreens did in response to that is they just unilaterally limited the amount. This is a corporate decision now. They had a corporate decision to limit the amount of controlled substances shipped to every pharmacy. And any patient watching that was filling their prescriptions at Walgreens all of a sudden said, we don't have it. We're only getting 1,500 Loratab per week for the town of Pahrump. Now, even if someone was abusing their product, I mean, you could write 120, 240, but this is for all the Pahrump, okay? And there were a lot of patients that they just couldn't get their medication. So they were just trying to, and everybody was saying, oh, it's our supplier, it's our supplier. No, it was their corporate decision. And Walgreens had made a business. They were in this book, Good to Great, okay, where they talked about repeating a winnable cycle. So if you do something good and you continue to do it, that's called good to great. And their model was customer service. If you went into Walgreens and bought a prescription, you would leave with things that were much more expensive than they made money on. And that's why Walgreens, I believe, has been having trouble, because they've gotten away from what made them great. And this is a prime example of just putting a bad decision on their part, not monitoring the pills that were being prescribed, internal monitoring, and being fined $80 million and then penalizing the customers for that. And I think I think the public needs to be aware of that. But that's not why Pahrump Valley Pharmacy closed, which is not Family Physician. They closed because the insurance companies just whacked them off at the knees. They just weren't going to pay them anything for what they were doing.
So it's big corporations getting involved again on a different level.
On a different level.
Controlling substance, put pressure on people.
Yeah, they do such big volume. And this is why being an independent practitioner and being an independent pharmacist and being independent is so important, that you support independence, because if they wipe all of the independence out, then that means competition goes away. And when competition goes away, you, the customer, suffers, because prices go up and service goes down, customer service goes down, everything goes down when they have that.
And we have the same problem in TV with our bandwidth, but we won't get into it in your show. But we have the exact same issue where the big companies, AT&T, Verizon, want to take and kick all the TV stations off the air because they want that airways so that they can sell that airtime to customers where it's actually owned by us, the American citizens.
Yep.
Same thing.
Yeah, and I just, what you need to understand is that, the other part that happened with this Walgreens issue was that there were 3 reasons why a pharmacist can refuse to fill a prescription, okay? One reason is their information is incomplete. Well, that's kind of a no-brainer. If the pharmacist doesn't have the right information, he shouldn't fill the prescription. 2, there was a forgery. Well, again, a no-brainer. 3, that was that if the pharmacist felt it was in the patient's best interest not to fill the prescription, this is law, that they should not fill the prescription and they should contact the physician. Okay, under circumstances, that's correct. They used that to start calling doctors saying, verifying prescriptions. When was this patient last seen? Okay, what are you treating that patient for? I had a pharmacist in Vegas call me call my office in the middle of the day, wanted MRI records on a patient who had been filling their pain prescription at that pharmacy for years. I was so infuriated. I got on the phone and I said, first of all, you don't have a signed release for those records. Second of all, you're not going to get those records. And third of all, you don't know how to interpret those records. You weren't trained in medicine, and there's no reason that you should have access to that. And if you're not going to fill that prescription, then you better tell me you're not going to fill it, and you better have a damn good reason why you're not going to. You know what he did? He gave the prescription back to the patient, which is wrong, because if they don't fill it, they hold the prescription. And then the patient went to another pharmacy and got it filled right away. I did file a complaint with the State Board of Pharmacy, and I never heard what happened, but he was clearly out of line. He was practicing medicine without a license as far as I was concerned.
Right.
And this is what you need to understand, that as you as a patient who are taking pain medications, this is what you're up against. And today I had a patient who basically had another pain prescription, and they only filled partial of the prescription. But the pharmacy didn't call me, and then he tried to tell me that this was related to the DEA placing pressure on them, and I corrected him. I said, no, the DEA is not placing pressure on you. I said, your suppliers are placing pressure on you. And they're doing that to appease the DEA, or it's one of these underhanded things. So patients, I'm telling you right now, it's time to call your senator. It's time to call your congressman. It's time to call your elected officials and say enough of the BS. Tell the DEA to get off of the back of your suppliers, and the suppliers to get off the back of the pharmacies. You have pain, you need your medication, you don't need to be, I have patients coming in 2 weeks early just so they can turn their prescription in so that they can get it in line, so they make sure that they get their prescriptions. It's insane. It's absolutely insane. And it just shouldn't be that way. We do our due diligence as physicians. Do you know the local Scorpion Task Force called the DEA because they had such a problem with oxycodone in this town? They wouldn't want to come out here. The DEA would not come out here unless you had a Mexican surname and had over 2,500 pills. This is what they told the local investigators. They could not get the DEA out here. Do you know how the DEA eventually came out here and talked to 2 practitioners? Because the State Board of Medicine was called. When the State Board was called, they called the DEA and they were out here investigating. Other than that, they just do whatever they want to do. And we have a livelihood. We have a license to protect. So, we're constantly checking our patients, and you do the best job you can. But at the end of the day, I didn't receive a check from the DEA to become their agent. They're not paying me. So I'm going to do what I need to do so that my patients get treated.
So the letter to the senators and congressmen are directed towards keeping the DEA and the drug manufacturers from controlling
Not the manufacturers, the major suppliers. So you have what you have are major pharmaceutical houses that pharmacies order from, and they're the ones that are scrutinizing the local pharmacies. Okay, so if Smith's goes over that 3-to-1 ratio, okay,
and that's a real thing.
It's a real thing. It's a real thing. It's really out there. If they go over the 3-to-1 ratio, their supplier may cut them off. That's why when Family Pharmacy went out of business, Smith said, we're not taking any new customers. So if you were an opioid patient, you couldn't go to Smith's if you were a new customer, because they didn't want to go over that 3-to-1 ratio. And so it's challenging enough. So this is a big deal. This is a conspiracy. This is a government agency placing pressure on a few selected distributors to place pressure on the pharmacies to make you, the patient, suffer. No law has been passed. Nothing else has been done, but the patients are suffering because that's how they want to limit that. You know, if you walk into a bank and you have so much money you're putting in there, the bank tellers are supposed to know, where did you get that money from? You know, they're the Secret Service. Where are you getting this money you're depositing in this account? Who are you? Where'd you come from? So customers, patients, Pahrump, you know, it's time to do your research. It's time to call your local senator, call your congressman, let them know you're upset about this issue. I hope you will do that. That's all the time we have tonight. I wanted to make you aware of this issue. Feel free to call in on our next show when I'm live to discuss it if you have any questions. Good night, Pahrump. Thank you for tuning in.